Hello there. So I'm gonna do a little bit of a almost a little step-by-step guide and walkthrough of this little prop idea that I had, and it starts with this. This is just an ordinary lantern I picked up at Harbor Freight. You know, you pull it out, it turns on. Very simple. It's only what, like $4 or so, but we're going to turn it into a fusion core inspired prop, so for anything post-apocalyptic, Fallout inspired cosplays, this will be a pretty good prop to have in your inventory. So to start, what I did is I first turned the light inside. It's normally a white light. I turned it blue by simply painting over the lenses. And that's all because of the, what's it called, like Cherenkov glow, that you see in real life. So I thought that's a nice way to keep it somewhat realistic. Now, the way I did this is a little bit complicated because of the way this was built. So what you have to do, I'm not going to fully do it here because I don't have the patience for that, but what you need to do is unscrew this, and you're going to see 4 little screws, right? I would recommend having like a jeweler's little Phillips screwdriver or something like this. A kit that has all the tiny little crafting bits, and you would unscrew those 4. Then this will come out. All right. You also should unscrew here. This way you can get access to the hex nut that's up here. Because once this gets pulled out, you're going to see a single screw in the middle that's slightly larger than these. You're going to unscrew that, which is going to come out of here, and this whole unit's going to come apart. You're going to be able to access this unit here. It'll come out of the clear enclosure. From there, you can paint it. I would give it about 10 to 15 minutes to dry, and then put it back together as such by first putting the nut in, screwing in the big screw, then putting this unit back on and screwing in the 4 little ones, and then these end pieces go back like normal. A bit of fair warning, inside here, the silver part that actually houses the lights, it will sort of split apart. It's wrapped around in 3 segments, right? You'll have to find a way to keep it together tight, or else it'll, when you put it together, it'll be somewhat crooked and it won't look right. So just keep an eye out for that. Like this little seam here, it'll kind of bust open. So just try to keep it packed together when putting this all back together. All right. So that's the starting portion of this, and I will be right back once I have painted this up and done a little extra to it. All right, and so now we've got it painted yellow. All I did really was give it a few coats of paint. I would recommend anything that's kind of a lighter shade of yellow, nothing too gold, like a dark golden marigold color. But also nothing too bright like a neon. I would just go in the middle like a regular yellow. Like a, I don't know, dandelion yellow. The particular finish, I would go for a satin or a matte. I would not go for anything glossy or even semi-glossy. So satin, matte, maybe even flat if you want to go all the way. That would work. There we go. And sometimes there might be a chance that this is kind of creased open. And when spraying, you might get stuff on the actual clear interior. To avoid that, I took a C-clamp. This is about 5 inches in length. So you're going to need like a 6-inch C-clamp of some sort. And I just clamped it together like this. However, when twisting it and it presses down here, very lightly. Don't twist it all the way or else you're going to punch into the lid and snap and break this whole unit. How do I know that? Because I did that, though I have fixed it since then. And hey, it gives a bit more of an aesthetic look to the rugged appearance that I want later on, so not too much of a loss. Just be wary of that. Don't tighten it all the way if you have to do that, because you'll break something. So now I'll come back when I've done some further paint work. Alright, so I was just humbled quite a little bit because I go to paint this top section. Bit of a learning experience so that you don't make the same mistake. I had painted this whole thing yellow, right? I went to paint this with another layer, right, of the gray, and it started to bubble and flake and react very, very bad. I had to basically then put stripper on the whole thing and just completely wipe it clean. Of course, not this section. So a quick note basically is, while you're painting this, leave it unassembled, actually. So take it apart, paint this separately, paint this however you want. Just do not try to layer the paints when it comes to the spray paints, at least in my experience, because it appears to react quite violently. It was very ugly. It was very bad. So that is a bit of a forewarning there. So that's been painted up to look like the top of the fusion core. And we're really just going to put this back together now. And this also kind of helps show what I was talking about earlier, right? You'll have that screw here in the middle. It feeds up through the center, if it would stop dropping. Come on. You gotta hold it, and it feeds up through here. And then, once you take this out, and also be wary that the paint, when you paint it like this, it does kind of glue stuff together. But you basically just put this back on. Put your hex nut in like so. And let me get the actual proper bit out. That'll go right in there. You just gotta hold both sides and give a good pressure so it actually gets in there. Okay. And then let's just start putting this back together. Let's see. So, and how you can tell to put it back together is you'll see a spring here on the side and that spring here. Those two springs must meet. That's basically the trigger mechanism for when it pulls out, right? When you pull out and interrupt the connection, it turns on. When they meet together, it turns off. Okay, now you gotta make sure the lines are, make sure the screws are lined up just right, because it does get a little tricky. Let me swap out the drill bits here. put it back together. Now, of course, this is just to get the base design, right? From this point forward, you can really do whatever you want to do, right? And now, I'm going to show, of course, further in this video what I do, but again, from this point forward, it can really be whatever the heck you want it to be, because that's the beauty of it, right? We're not making an exact one-to-one Fusion Core replica. We're just making something inspired by it. And everybody has their own different taste when it comes to, you know, sort of post-apocalyptic type stuff, right? And that's the true beauty of it, is that when you're making stuff like that, it also feeds into the sort of the lore or the storytelling of your cosplay, of your costume piece. It makes it look like, hey, this is actually something they found out in the wasteland and repurposed and are using, so everything is going to be a little different. And when you're unscrewing stuff like this, always be sure to kind of wipe away excess flakes that'll come off the threads. But yeah, so we still got that operational, nice and neat. Nothing's falling out. So this is the basic, you know, I guess you could say the factory standard for your Fusion Core. So I'll be back when I've done my own personal touches. And again, I will keep reiterating this. Those personal touches may vary depending on what you have at hand or what you like. So I'll catch you in just a few. All right. So back after a few more details added. Around here, these little ridges, these little dots, I painted them red. I just used some Tester's model paint. And then in each of these holes where the handles were, I first added some of these little brass tubes. You can get these I got them at Hobby Lobby, but you can kind of bend them very gently, slowly. Don't bend them too quickly or too sharply. They will kink in and they can be quite annoying after that. And then also some copper wire, again from Hobby Lobby. And what I really did is I first put in the tubing, which fit in pretty well. And then I had to take this little model drill here, and I had to drill out right next to it some small extra holes. That's where I would put the copper wire. And I really just strung it on the sides, wrapped around the brass tubing, and put it in like so. So there are some slight handles that I could loop some twine or something through and make a sort of makeshift hang it off a belt. But it also looks like conduit and wiring running through the top of it. Gives it a bit of that improvised tech feel. And yeah, that's the first step for this, and I will be back after putting some stickers and stuff on there. I'll have to look for a few different designs that fit my fancy. So I'll be right back with that. All right. So the stickers now. I just put, you know, danger, radioactive. And then here I combined two other stickers, a fragile, handle with care. I chopped off the top, and then just a normal radiation symbol, right? And what I used for this is, you can find some images on Google Images, you know, something simple like that. and then print it up on paper like this. You know, just glossy, clear sticker paper. You know, and you're going to be able to print it on there, peel the clear layer off, and put it right on. I do recommend having, of course, something like a card or, you know, a stiff sort of straight edge to put everything on there nice and sealed tightly and evenly. And yeah, I don't really feel like putting too many stickers on because it might overdo it, and we're trying to make this look like, you know, an official, like actual warning labels. So only a couple. Don't overdo it. Of course, if you feel like overdoing it, then I'm not going to stop you. But that's all I'm going to put on this. And then we're going to move on to the weathering, and after that, I'll basically do it. I'll be back after that. All right, and so this is the final product here. We've added the weathering, the battle damage, and I'm going to run through how I did that. So what I did is I first roughed it up, you know, give it a general sort of roughing up with some sandpaper. Now, keynote here is to be very light with it, right? Don't press in too much or else you're going to strip off your paint. Just be very light to kind of really rough up the general surface, okay? The only places where I gave a little more pressure were down here around the base, you know, because that would probably see more impacts and more hitting with stuff, and then a little bit around the top. But in the middle, I did not really put too much pressure when applying this. So just light, slow pressure around a couple times, and that'll give you a good starting surface. I then used a Dremel tool and used the bit on there. There's like these little, not like the regular sandpaper bits, but there's these little green looking, they're finer sandpaper, right? And I used that and just kind of, again, I skipped along the surface at random and just kind of let it do its own thing. You know, I went in different directions, different speeds, and just varying the pressure, again, of how much I pressed down. And that's how, you know, I got some of these long scratches. So yeah, and then you'll feel, I can't really show, but you'll feel some of the deeper, you know, markings on here. That's from the Dremel tool. It's a very similar method to what I did on the LARP torch when I was texturing the PVC shaft to look like wood. It was a very similar method here. Finally, I used some simple acrylic, you know, washable black paint. I mixed that with water to kind of dilute it, and I had it in a spray bottle. From a distance, I then just sprayed this down a bit, and I let it dry. I did not touch it or anything. I let it run down the side. I let it dry for a couple hours, and that created the much lighter sort of dirt effects here, right? Don't know how well you can see it, but that's kind of like the light dirt effect. I then also used the same gray paint, this metallic paint, again from a distance, you know, about a foot or two. Just lightly dusted it from a distance. That would also help darken it, give it a more overall metallic look. And then again from about 2 feet, actually probably even further, because of how powerful the spray on it was, this dark black splatter here was basically like a plastic dip. You know, if you get a sort of plastic epoxy or whatever coating, then that's what this basically is, right? Because it's a much thicker material, so it looks really like, you know, oil or mud was splattered onto here, and it actually came up pretty well. And I didn't do too much because, again, that spray was very powerful. It goes a long distance. and also it's very heavy. So just a little bit on like one side, very, very light on this side here. It's very easy to overdo that, so be careful with that particular stuff if you use it. And a quick note, in between all of that, when I had done the acrylic and water, the labels, the stickers I had made were running off. Like that spray had basically washed off the label. So what I had to do is I first did that acrylic and water, basically watercolor spray. Once it dried, I then put on new stickers. So that's something else to keep in mind. Basically, don't put your stickers on until you have your good base layer established. Once the stickers were on, that's when I used the metal paint and the plastic spray later on. That way, of course, it covers over the sticker. And not only that, but like here you can really see it. The acrylic and everything, even though it's on the actual item and then the sticker's on top, it still kind of looks like it's on the sticker. It gives that, it is very deceiving, which is good. So it came out pretty well. And that is everything. So I'm actually pretty happy with this final product, and I'm actually considering buying another one of these little things from Harbor Freight, because again, I think it was like $4 or $5, if even, and making more of these, because that would be very interesting to see if I can, just have a collection for a cosplay, maybe sell a few. It's interesting to think about. Plus, I learned quite a bit just doing this first one. I have to do better on painting the lights and everything. More effective, like I said, use of the weathering and the stickers, making sure I'm not ruining that. And also, when clamping this together to get rid of that seam, don't press down all the way or else you're going to break your lid. So, little things like that I've learned, and I'll make it better on a second one. But I do hope that you enjoyed this little walkthrough, and hopefully it inspired you to do something similar. Like I said earlier, once you get to a certain point, it's up to you, right? This is just a general framework. So yeah, I thank you for stopping by, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.